All right, even as we continue with the countdown to the election day, 363 days to go. This is what the papers are talking about. The Daily Nation, a very harsh assessment of President William Ruto's last 4 years in power. 4 wasted years. This is according to the former deputy president. Opposition leader Gachagua has issued a harsh assessment of President Ruto's 4 years in office, accusing his administration of reneging on its manifesto, pledges, and implementing draconian policies. He cited wasteful spending, corruption, punitive taxes, goons, and abductions among state excesses. Now, I saw a huge team of pro-government MPs dismissing the former deputy president's charges. And, you know, in politics, it looks like they just played into his hands. Like he said something, na nyinyi mkakimbia mbio kwenda correspond to him. You know, Gachagua is not even a presidential candidate. And according to many people from that other camp, he is not even eligible to vie. But if there's one person who they ran to respond to, it's Gachagua. Akisema sijui kumenyesha akujanyesha haraka sana wanakimbia hapo. This is part of the coverage for Decision 2027 today on the Daily Nation. The story is on pages 4 and 5, and it breaks down what exactly Gachagua said. And according to President William Ruto's former deputy, he says, "You failed Kenya." Yeah, this is a stinging verdict on Ruto's performance. He talks about what's happening to NSSF. It talks about so many different things. And they've done a fact check on page 5 about Gachagua's accountability statement and performance audit fact check. So he claims that hardworking Kenyans remit over 100 billion monthly to NSSF. This has been termed as false, according to the Daily Nation. Another claim that a liter of super petrol retailed at 159, while diesel was at 142 in August 8th, 2022. It is partially true. They say that it's misleading what President William Ruto apparently deported a complainant's local agent. And they claim that the country has a debt of 13.02 trillion. They say that that is actually true. So this is a 39-page assessment challenging Kenya Kwanza's administration's record across key sectors. Yes, and that's how they kick off their politics. 364 days to the next election. Back to the front page. ODM demands DP slot 50% share of state posts. Yeah. So ODM wants President Ruto to name a party member, his running mate in the presidential election, and to commit to cede half of government appointments should the coalition win the polls. I don't know what people in Kenya Kwanza will say about this. Fine, they are okay with the coalition talks, but many people are not necessarily in ODM. Many are quite in are quietly in UDA. Others are also in the Kenya Kwanza affiliate parties. What exactly will they say? On the inside pages, 600 million job scam suspect set his eyes on Kabete seat. This is about a pastor. He's called Pastor James Wanjohi of the defunct Jesus Culture Ministries in Nairobi. He now eyes a parliamentary seat. You can read more on that on page 3. Yeah. Matters Education on page 2. Limited university slots frustrate students seeking course transfers is another good story there on the front page. And now, because we're talking about Vision 2060, Professor Hino, this Japanese professor who's behind, is called Professor Hiroyuki Hino. They did an interview in this paper, and he's among those who are developing the blueprint for Vision 2060. He talks about human capital, not just big projects. He says this is what will drive the takeoff. You can read more on that as you anticipate the launching of the main discussion on Vision 2060. On the back page, Matter Sports, Chasing History, Black Blood eyes Kenya Cup title, that's rugby, and WAFCON 2026. Malawi faces Algeria to host Morocco, as host Morocco meet Cameroon in the semi-finals. Remember, Kenya was eliminated quite early after losing all 3 of their preliminary matches. And that's the Daily Nation.
All right. Let's take a look at Taifa Leo. Gachagua alima serikali. Aliyekuwa naibu rais Rigathi jana alikosoa vikali sera za utawala wa Kenya Kwanza na kumtaka Rais Ruto asitishe ushuru wa kulemaza wa Kenya, kubatilisha bima ya afya inayosimamiwa na Social Health Authority SHA na kumaliza ufisadi aliyodai kolea katika utumishi wa umma. Habari kamili katika ukurasa wa pili wa gazeti hili. Wanasema kwamba katika hotuba ya kutathmini utendakazi wa rais wa miaka 4 iliyopita, Rigathi asema Ruto amefeli. Hiyo ni maamuzi mwaka 2027. Tukiangalia vidokezo zaidi, ODM sasa yazua dhoruba ikiendea kiti cha Kindiki. Ni mvutano kuhusu nani atakuwa naibu rais iwapo Rais William Ruto atashinda muhula wa pili uliibuka katika kikao cha faragha cha viongozi wa Kenya Kwanza na ODM mjini Naivasha siku ya Jumatatu. Sasa ODM ilisisitiza kuwa inataka nafasi hiyo katika makubaliano ya kisiasa yanayosukwa kuelekea uchaguzi mkuu wa mwaka ujao. Na kwa mujibu wa duru kadhaa zilizohudhuria kikao hicho, naibu kiongozi wa ODM ambaye pia ni gavana wa Kisii Mbarati ndiye aliibua swala hilo. Sasa Bwana Arati alitaka serikali igawanye nafasi za serikali nusu kwa nusu, 50-50. Rais kuzindua safari ya kuelekea Singapore. Mchakato wa mazungumzo ya kitaifa kuhusu mustakabali wa Kenya. Hiyo mazungumzo itafanyika leo. Koti yaagiza jopo kutenga shilingi milioni 105. Inataka fedha hizo zilipwe wahasiriwa wa ukatili wa polisi endapo watashinda kesi. Na hukumu ya kifo kwa Assad Syria ni habari ya masuala ya nje. Kule juu zaidi, Linda Mwananchi ilivyokosa kulinda jina. Wachambuzi wanaonya kuwa hata Linda Mwananchi ikisajiliwa huenda ikakabiliwa na changamoto kuhusu kufanana kwa majina ya vyama.
Tuangazie The Standard. And on the front page of The Standard, an image there of the former deputy president and giving a scorecard under the title Gachagua Bombshell, broken promises, failed plans, soaring debt, corruption and alleged state-backed killings are some of the things Rigathi Gachagua accuses President William Ruto of perpetrating. In a blistering attack, the former deputy president alleged his former boss was presiding over a collapsing economy, trampling on the rule of law, and using a revolving door of grand plans to distract Kenyans from 4 years of broken promises. This is according to the former deputy president. Government leaders, however, dismissed the claims as the thoughts of a leader desperate for publicity. And those who responded include the DCI. So everyone is responding to Gachagua. You know, something funny is that as a politician, this is exactly what you want. You just want to say a few things and everyone comes to respond to you. It means you've actually made it.
So he's winning.
He's winning. He's on the front pages. Everyone right now is talking about Rigathi Gachagua. The entire government machinery, DCI, majority leader, minority leader, hata ule mwenye kusalamiwa kwa ndege, wote wamekuja kusema, oh, Gachagua this, Gachagua that. Gachagua this, Gachagua that. So it's the same story. Meanwhile, on the top strip, all systems go as IBC rolls out Kims and ballot tenders, still in preparations towards the next general elections. Page 2, at least a return to the music festival. More than music, young stars turn songs into messages that matter. You can read more on that on page 2. Any other interesting stories? Abductions, court rebukes Ruto team over payment list. The High Court has called out the Macau Mutua's compensation team for leaving out 35 persons who had been abducted during Gen Z's protest from the compensation list during the verification exercise. You remember we talked about this a few months back, and we were saying, okay, fine. Has the list been made public? Who exactly is being compensated? Could there have been people who consider themselves victims but are not on the list? And could there be people who are not victims at all but are on the list of compensation? So at least the court has said 35 people who are indeed victims were not included on that list. CS Mbadi, Junet Ishungwa, tell of former DP. That story on page 7 with whatever Gachagua said written on page 6. Gachagua hapa, Gachagua pale. DP Kindiki Rao exposes growing tensions within Kenya Kwanza. I saw a very interesting happening in Naivasha. That while ODM is demanding 50% share of the government and the running mate position, everyone in UDA and Kenya Kwanza were running to take a photo with the current deputy president. Just a show of solidarity and support. Huyu ndo mtu wetu, tunapiga picha naye. Chunga sana na watu wanasiasa. Watakuruka hata wakipigwa na picha leo. Kesho wanasema hawakujui. Yeah. All right. So those are the main stories on the front pages. Back page, the mighty Arsenal is back there. Who could Arsenal sign after missing out on Vinicius Jr.? They ask a question, and they're using an image here of Arsenal's midfielder Bruno Guimaraes, who's applauding as he was introduced to the fans ahead of the preseason friendly against Borussia Dortmund. We lost the game, but Bruno Guimaraes made his debut there. Matters Arsenal football. That's the Standard, the bold newspaper.
Let's take a look at the People Daily now. Ruto's 2027 gamble. The story is on page 3 and 4 of the People Daily. That the president is betting on ODM to defeat a united opposition. But could the alliance cost him his own political base? Once again, the photo they're using is an AI-generated photo.
That's actually a cartoon.
Is it a cartoon?
AI-generated cartoon.
It's still AI.
Yeah.
So, they're saying defeat united opposition and risk losing his own political base. They say that Sifuna is the only leader who can beat state in 2027, according to Western Kenya members of parliament. In the biggest political gamble of his presidency so far, President William Ruto and ODM leadership have agreed in principle to form an alliance to square off with a united opposition in next year's elections. But questions abound about the president's calculation and whether his mission to stop competitors in their tracks in coming polls would succeed. And that one is on page 3 and of course page 4. And they also make mention of the counties that President Ruto cannot afford to lose. And these are Kiambu, Nakuru, Uasin Gishu, Kericho, Nandi, Bomet, Murang'a, Meru, Kakamega, Bungoma, Kisumu, Mombasa. Basically in the whole country. Yeah, so the counties that matter in next year's polls, according to this newspaper, that in Nyeri, Gachagua's home county, there are 481,632 registered voters, which must prevent it becoming anti-Ruto headquarters. All right, let's take a look at other headlines here. How Nairobi's outspoken senator is building a new political brand ahead of 2027. That is Senator Edwin Sifuna. Kisi's 2027 showdown, Arati, Mashogu and Onyonka face a battle where clan, money and coalitions could matter more than party labels. That one is a story on page 7, and that's the People Daily, People and Politics.
All right, let's take a look at the Star. These are stories we've seen on other papers. ODM demanding 50% of Ruto government and the deputy president's post. That's the main story. The other one is about IEBC and preparations for the 2027 election. And here they're talking about, because on other papers I've seen they've talked about tenders for Kim's kits and ballots. Now they break down the changes that IEBC has changed ballot paper color codes. For the president, it will be white, National Assembly green, MCA brown, Senate yellow, Woman Rep purple, Governor sky blue, and referendum gray. So those are the changes there. The other stories we've seen here: set aside 105 million for disappeared victims. Court tells government. We've tackled that story on a different paper. That's the Star. Fresh, independent, different. Grab yourself a copy for only 60 bob.
All right. Let's take a look at the Business Daily. Before you do, you remember on Friday the way you were mad that while private security officers were made to sit on the ground. I'm taking a look at a photo here on page 8 of this is the Standard. You see these leaders are seated on the ground while President William Ruto is addressing the PG at Naivasha. Now jam, ulikume jam. Let's take a look at the Business Daily.
Hawa ni wagani, hawa ni media wamekaa chini.
We koma, hapa mbele hapa chini.
Hawa ni picha wanapigwa.
Business Daily, no. Those guys are seated down quite literally. Kenya taps 207 billion shillings loans to pay salaries and debts. The Treasury borrowed that amount to pay salaries, debt and other recurrent expenditure in the year ended June in continued breach of the Public Finance Management Law. This story is on page 2. It says that the draft 2026 budget review and outlook paper shows the President William Ruto administration borrowed 983.7 billion shillings in the financial year 2025-2026. Proposed law targets trusts in war against dirty money. Yes, that is also a story on page 2. It talks about betting On the ticker, bank lending to farms and households increases to a 28-month high, and judges reject bid to place caveat on Talanta Stadium land. That's the Business Daily.
All right, let's cross over to Uganda and tell you the biggest highlight there. And it's there on the front page of the New Vision. Bars to open at 3 p.m. You remember Mutudo laws here in Kenya? Alikuwa anasema bar at some point it would open at 2 p.m. on weekends, and on weekdays it was to open at 5 p.m. So now in Uganda they're coming up with something similar. It's there on the New Vision. Bars to open at 3 p.m. And the local governments have been ordered to enforce the rule. It is also there on the front page of the Daily Monitor. Minister Balam issues orders on bars and alcohol. The other headline is about Senior 6 matters education. The grading to change in 2028. Here in the Daily Monitor. In Tanzania, The Citizen. Government steps in over cement price hikes. Maswala ya simiti kule. On the front page of The Citizen. On the front page of gazeti la Mwananchi, Samia na maaskofu TEC wagusa hisia. Ni mazungumzo yao yatajwa ni safari mpya ya maridhiano. Wadau wataka makundi mengine yafikiwe. LHRC, CCT, Sheikh Ponda wafunguka haya. Bado ni mazungumzo ya maridhiano kutokana na uchaguzi wa mwaka jana. Tundu Lissu bado habari zake za gonga vyombo vya habari na kurasa za mbele za magazeti. Lissu alivyohoji kuteswa, agusia wanaohusika. Ni habari kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti la Mwananchi. Kutoka Tanzania na Uganda, turejelee nyumbani tuangalie Karakacha sasa.